Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ielts Insider. I am James, and today I am going to be talking about the Ielts speaking test and especially part one of the test. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So during today's lesson, if you've got any questions, just write them in the chat and I'll show them on the screen and give you some answers. We've got a few comments already. So we've got Layla is here. Hi, Teacher James. How are you doing today? I am very good today. The weather's getting a little bit hot, but overall, I'm feeling quite well. And how are you feeling today, Layla? I hope you are well too. Just one second. And we've also got Anna Maria saying, good morning, James and Layla. So it must be morning. I think, Anna Maria, are you from Colombia? I think so. Morning time in Colombia. Very good. Layla saying hi to everyone. And I would like to echo that. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I can hear and see you. Very, very good. That's very important for today's live stream. Yes. Oh, it's 5 a.m. in Colombia. Wow. Well, very early. Must be a very devoted student, Anna Maria, to be up at 5 a.m. Excellent for that. Oh, 6 a.m. Okay. Still very, very early, 6 a.m. Layla's saying, I'm doing very well, but the weather is super hot. It's 49 degrees Celsius. Wow, really hot. I hope you have got some air conditioning, Layla. OMG. And good evening from Sri Lanka. Dulanjali, I hope I've said your name correctly there. It's very nice to see you, Dulanjali. And who do we have here? We've got Harry 300. Hello, James. Good evening from Indonesia. So we've got 6 a.m. in Colombia in South America. We have got an evening time in Indonesia. Very good. And Julio, good morning. Yes, in Colombia as well. Excellent. So very nice to see so many people in the stream, and please write some messages in the chat and I'll stop every 5 or 10 minutes or so and try to answer all of your questions. Okay. Yes, we can't live without an air conditioner. Yeah. Saudi Arabia, I can imagine being so hot. I've been to Dubai before and it was really hot in the United Arab Emirates. So I can imagine what it's like in Saudi. Okay, let's go on and let's start today's lesson. We are going to be talking about IELTS speaking part 1. So I'll do the part 1 in today's live stream. On Thursday, I'll talk about part 2, and then on Friday, I'll talk about part 3 of the speaking test. So let's get started. So today's contents, we'll look at the exam format briefly, some topics, sample questions and answers, and some study tips. Also, I'll be giving you some homework today. So if anybody wants to do that homework, you can leave it in the comment section of the YouTube video. So The speaking test. There are three parts to the speaking test, and it's designed to assess you on a wide range of skills. It takes between 11 and 14 minutes, and when you're speaking to the examiner, it will be recorded and assessed by the examiner after your exam is over. So there are three parts to the test. The You will talk face to face with the examiner. Something that's quite important, the examiners come from many different countries, so accents will vary. So, although IELTS is predominantly a British test, their examiners come from all over the world. So you have to be prepared for a lot of different accents when you're taking the speaking test, as you will not know which country your examiner comes from until you start taking the test. And the test is interactive and aims to recreate real life conversations. So today we're going to be concentrating on part one of the test. Um, so all parts of the test, you're going to be graded on fluency and coherence. That's how you speak. Is it smooth, and are your ideas organized in the correct way? Your vocabulary, how wide a vocabulary range you have. Do you use more complex words? You'll be assessed on your grammar and pronunciation. So, in part one, you have to try to communicate your opinions on some everyday topics. You have to be able to organize your ideas clearly, speak fluently and coherently, use appropriate grammar and vocabulary, and speak clearly. So, there's a lot of things you have to remember when you're answering these questions. It's not just one thing. You are being graded on a lot of different things when you are speaking. So, we're going to look at a little bit more about the format, and then we're going to go on to the topics. So, this part of the exam should take around 4 minutes. It is an interview style exam, this part. They are going to ask you some questions. You just need to give some answers to those questions. So there's not really any preparation time. You just need to listen to the question carefully, give the answer. So the first thing that's going to happen in this test is the examiner will introduce him or herself. So they'll maybe say, "Good morning, my name is James, and I will be your IELTS speaking examiner today." Then they will ask you to introduce yourself and confirm your identity. You will give them either passport or ID card, something like that. And when you introduce yourself, I think a good way to do it is maybe just your name and where you come from. So, my name is James and I come from Scotland. Could be a good way to do that. Or my name is Layla. I come from Saudi Arabia. Could be a good starting point for your introduction. So once they've started here, the examiner is going to ask you some questions about everyday life. So they're not going to be very specific topics, it will be quite general. So this part of the exam is lighter in subject matter than the other parts. So it's going to be things about everyday life. So nothing particularly difficult. You should give full answers, not just short sentences. So I will come on to this a little bit later today when I give you some tips on how to answer the questions. But for example, if if the examiner asks you, are you a student? And you just say yes, that's not a great answer. We would maybe say, yes, I'm a student. I currently study economics at the University of Cairo. I am in my third year of studies. So we want to give some full answers when we are answering the questions in part one. So let's go back and so Layla's asking, what time is it there in Scotland? In Scotland, it's about 12 o'clock midday there. And are there any breaks between each part of speaking or not? No, there are no breaks. So once you have finished part one, they will go directly on to part two. When you have finished part two, you go directly on to part three. So you don't get any breaks between each part of the speaking exam. What is the difference between fluency and coherence? Very, very good question. So fluency is about the speed of your speech, how your speech flows as well. So I'll give you an example. My name is James. I come from Scotland. That is nice and fluent. So the speed and the flow of the voice there. Coherence is about how you organize your thoughts in an answer. So again, that same answer, well, I suppose that would be different, but coherence is about kind of the logical way that you organize the information that you are given. Can you be understood clearly and easily? If you are coherent, it means you are easy to understand. The sentences that you say are correct and easy to understand. Fluency is more to do with the speed, volume, and the flow of your voice. So I hope that helps with that question, Layla. So what we're going to look at just now, the topics used for this exam are related to everyday life. So I want to get you involved a little bit here. Which topics do you think could come up in this part of the test? So if it's about everyday life, what do you think? So I'll give everybody maybe about 1 minute. I want you to write your ideas in the chat. What topics do you think will come up in the test? So while I do this, I'm going to test out the music feature. I'll play some music for 1 minute. Everyone, write in the comments, what do you think? Okay, am I getting any? Oh, very good. So let's see. Anna Maria is saying about work, studies, family, hobbies, expectations about English. Maybe not so much this one, but these ones definitely. Work, studies, family, hobbies. They are all related to everyday life. These are possible topics that we could talk about in part one of the exam. So excellent, Anna Maria. Pallavi has just joined here. She's saying, I hope you're doing great. I'm fine, thank you. Very good. And she's also saying, hello, everyone. So, Anna Maria has given us some great topics here. Um, Here's a kind of list of topics that came up in the tests between January and May 2021. So there we go: study and work, food, amusement parks, exercise, scenery or travel, history, water sports, forests, holidays, trust, tiredness, cosmetics, stationery, alone time, school life, weather, laughter, desserts, accommodation, museums, islands. So, those were just some of the topics that came up in the Ielts test between these dates. So, we can see these topics are things that we would talk about in everyday life. So, what I'm going to do next is look at three common topics that come up in part one of the test. The first one is work and study, the second one is free time, and the third one is your hometown. These topics come up very, very often in the test, so I think it's important to look at some example questions for each of these topics. So let's look first at the topic of work and study. So here are some possible questions that they could ask you in the exam. Are you a student or do you work? What is your place of work or what is your place of study like? What do you like about your job? Is there anything you don't like about your job? What was your first day at work or university like? What responsibilities do you have at work? What is your typical day like at work or school? So we can see the questions here are quite simple questions. And when we're answering them, we don't just want to give a simple answer. We want to try and give it the answer and then try to give something extra if we can. So let's say, what is your typical day like at work? So if you were answering this question, you would probably start with, I arrive at work around 9 o'clock. I usually have a team meeting. I break for lunch at 12:30. In the afternoon, we have to talk to clients in other countries, and I go home around 5 p.m. So that would be a kind of good. Um, oh, Sorry, I'll come back to Pallavi's question. I'm mispronouncing her name, his name or her name. I'll come back to that in a minute. So there's an example. Um, what is your place of work or study like? So again, I work for an insurance company. I work in a large office, so there are many people there, and I'm always very busy, and the workplace is quite noisy. So we want to kind of give as much detail as we can in these answers. So these are some sample questions. Um, let's see, a couple of questions are coming in. Layla is saying, well, introducing myself, is it okay to say I'm Layla or should I say I am Layla? I'm Layla is fine. I am Layla is fine. My name is Layla is fine. There's lots of different ways. So you don't have to be overly formal when you're doing this. Pallavi is saying, you pronounce my name incorrectly. I understand that Indian names are very difficult to pronounce in foreign countries. So, could you tell me exactly how I should pronounce this? So, when I read Pallavi, that's what I can read. So, if you can tell me how I can pronounce that correctly, I will start using that correctly from now on. Layla's saying, what's the maximum of sentences I should use for my answer? Well, don't worry about maximum, because in this part, if you're speaking too long, the examiner will just ask you to stop and go on to the next question. If that happens, that's not a bad thing. That's okay for that to happen. So yeah, I think 3 or 4 sentences is probably enough. For some questions, maybe even 2 sentences would be enough. But there is no maximum. But if you speak too long, the examiner will stop you. But that's okay if the examiner stops you. Um, so, another topic that is very common is free time or lifestyle. And again, here are some sample questions that could come up here. So we've got, do you have a lot of free time? What do you do in your free time? Do you spend your free time outside? What sort of things do you like doing in your free time? Is there a free time activity you would like to try in the future? Do you have a busy social life? Do you lead an active life? So again, there's quite a variety of questions all on that same topic. So another example here, do you have a lot of free time? So it's a yes no question. So that's how we should start answering it. So, do you have a lot of free time? No, I don't. Unfortunately, these days I'm very busy at work, so I don't have a lot of time to myself. I usually only have free time on the weekends. So, that would be a good answer for this question. Um, what sort of things do you like doing in your free time? So if I was answering this, I would say, well, I don't have much free time, but I do enjoy playing guitar and watching movies. I especially like watching Netflix because there's a big variety of movies. So, again, that's the kind of length we should be looking at for these answers. We probably want to look somewhere between 10 and 20 seconds in our answer. Lots of questions would require shorter answers, some would require longer answers. But if you aim for around 10 to 20 seconds of speech, you should be doing okay. I chose one more topic, which was your hometown. This is another topic that comes up in the exam very, very often. And again, I've got some sample questions for you. So we've got things like, where is your hometown? What kind of place is it? What's the most interesting part of your town? What kind of jobs do the people in your town do? Would you say it's a good place to live? How often do you visit your hometown? What is your hometown famous for? And what is the oldest part of your hometown? So, again, all of these questions are giving you the opportunity to explain about something that you know very well. And again, your answers should give some extra information. So let's say the question is, what kind of place is your hometown? Well, here we're probably trying to describe maybe the size of it, maybe the location of it, maybe the weather as well. So for me, my hometown is a small town. It is close to a big city, and there are lots of buses and rail services in my town. It is a very quiet place, and people mostly live there and work in the big city nearby. Let's say the question was, would you say it's a good place to live? Again, this is a yes no question. So we should start the answer with yes or no. So for me, yes, I think it's a very good place to live. There are lots of parks and fields in my hometown. The air quality is very good and it is a very quiet place. So I think it's a great place to live. So, again, these are just some example questions and example answers from the part one of the test. Um, Before we go on to some tips, I'll look here. Is it okay if I repeat one word such as good 3 times while answering? I would have to say here no, in this case. So when it comes to scoring the test, it's looking for lexical resource, and that is how wide your vocabulary is. So if you're giving an answer and you're using the word good 3 times, it's kind of showing that you don't kind of know any other alternatives to that word. So this comes back to something that's come up in a few of the live streams, and that is synonyms. So instead of using the word good 3 times, we could use the word good once. We could use excellent. We could use awesome. We could use great. We could use fantastic. So rather than just saying, oh, my hometown is very good, it has lots of parks, which is good, and there are lots of trains nearby that are good. We would maybe change that around and say, so my hometown is a good place to live. There are lots of fantastic parks, and there are rail lines and lots of trains, which is excellent. So rather than using good 3 times, we try to vary our vocabulary a little bit. Um, Also, Layla has said here, what about using filler words like, well, you know? Yeah, these are completely fine. These are words that people use in everyday speech. So there's no problem in using, well, you know. Now, actually, you know can be sometimes a little bit, um, yeah, maybe sometimes you know is saying, it depends kind of how you say it. Well, you know, those times where you feel tired and things. But if you were saying a specific place, well, you know, Copenhagen, I don't know that city. So it really depends on what you're saying. But filler words generally are okay to use. They're very useful as well, Layla, because they can buy you some time whether while you're thinking of your answers. So some other fillers are, that's a good question, or let me think about that. Um, so fillers are okay. Well, you know, is okay for some things. It really depends on what you're going to be talking about next. So I hear a lot of students saying, as you know, my father is very sick. No, I don't know that. So be careful when you're using you know. It would have to be something that you expect everybody to know. But excellent question again, Layla. Okay, so those are the sample questions. Now, we're going to look at some tips. The first tip, it sounds very simple. Listen to the question carefully. But a lot of people don't listen to the question carefully. They maybe listen to the first part of the question and then stop listening and think they know what the question is. So it's really important that you understand the question exactly so that your answer is relevant to that question. You don't want to be answering the wrong question because that will lose you points. So, first of all, listen to the question carefully. Secondly, your answers shouldn't be too short or too long. 2 or 3, maybe 4 sentences should be enough. So, like some of the examples I gave before, let's say, where is your hometown? So, you could say something like, well, my hometown is Mumbai in India. It is one of the largest cities in India. And it's a great place to live because it's very active and there's lots of things to do. So again, that's not too short and it's not too long. So a kind of good thing to think about, I would think maybe answer the question and then maybe give 2 extra pieces of information. That could be enough for your answers. Next, don't try to memorize answers. We've already seen how many possible topics there are. And these are just some of the topics. There could be many, many, many more topics. So it would be impossible to memorize all of your answers. So the important thing here is just getting used to answering the types of questions. Most of the types of questions are going to be asking you about who, what, why, where, when, how. Sometimes they will ask you yes, no questions beginning with are you, do you, would you. So, yeah, think more about the types of questions rather than trying to memorize the answers to every question, because that's just impossible. And finally, here, don't worry if the examiner stops you. The examiner has a set amount of time to ask you all of their questions. If you're giving an answer that's a little bit too long and the examiner stops you, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So it just maybe means that will give you an idea of how long you should be speaking for. So if the examiner does stop you, don't worry about it. They're not saying you've done anything wrong or done anything incorrect. They're just saying, I need to go on to the next question. So also for this, there are some good practice methods. Now, practicing with a partner isn't always easy. First of all, you need to have a partner to start with, but all of you are on the internet. It can be a good place to meet people online. You can find partners there to practice with. If you cannot find a partner, a good way to do this is record your answers and listen back. So, recording your answers on your phone, on your computer, then listening to your answers, trying to see what you could do better, maybe. That's a great practice method. Sometimes writing your answers down and then checking later for grammar mistakes. That is also useful. And again, Layla brought this up earlier about using the same words. Try not to use the same words in every answer. Try to vary your vocabulary if you can. So, these are some good ways that you can practice for that test. I think this one here is probably the best because you, first of all, you can get used to the sound of your own voice, but you can be your own worst critic. So listen carefully, think about, do I sound fluent? Is the speech smooth? Um, do I understand what is being said clearly? How is my pronunciation? Did I answer the question correctly? How was my grammar? So you can actually grade your own listening, your own speaking by listening to your answers. So yeah, these are some really good practice methods for part one. So before we go on to homework. We've got a few more questions coming up. Yeah, I should choose the proper word in the right place while speaking and answering. Yeah. So you, yeah, the proper word, I would maybe say yeah, the correct words. Using words in their correct way is really quite important here. Then it's okay to think for a moment before answering the question to realize it as well. Yeah, that's completely fine. Now, this is very important, a moment. So 1 or 2 seconds, no problem. But if you're thinking for 5 or 10 seconds before you start speaking, that's a problem. So earlier I said, oh, that's useful language, like, oh, that's a good question, or let me think about that. Yeah, those can be some useful phrases that we can use when we are thinking for a moment, but we don't want to have long sections of silence. So if the examiner asks you the question, you should be trying to respond as quickly as possible within 1 or 2 seconds. Now, that response could be something simple like, oh, I haven't thought about that before, or let me think about that. Yeah. And then start speaking. That could be okay in the test. I think if the examiner stops me, maybe I will get nervous and confused. Yeah, very, very possibly. So that's why I'm telling you here, don't worry if the examiner stops you. It doesn't mean that you have done anything wrong. It just means there is a time limit. So try not to get nervous. So if the examiner stops you, they'll say something like, thank you, we're going to move on to the next question, or maybe just thank you and then ask the next question. Don't worry about it. You've not done anything wrong if they stop you. So try not to be nervous or confused. Just focus on the next question. If you get nervous and confused, you're going to stop listening. You won't be focusing on the next question. So if they stop you, forget about it. Listen again for the next question. I guess it's better giving specific answers and not talking too much. Yes, Anna Maria. In the first part of the exam, part one, they're just looking to make you feel comfortable talking about yourself, talking about your life. They don't want to have a huge, long answer, you telling them your whole life story. So it's much better to give specific answers and not ramble on and talk about things that are irrelevant. Remember as well, your answers should always relate to the question. So we don't want to go off topic too much from these questions. So specific answers and not talking too much. Yeah, I think that's a way to look at it. We've got here, my internet connection is very bad today. That's a problem a lot of people have, Pallavi. So yeah, I'm sorry you're having problems with your internet connection. Do you think the Oxford Dictionary or other dictionaries to check our pronunciation, or should I listen to only native speakers? I think both are good ways to do this, Layla. Um, if you're getting your pronunciation from an internet dictionary or on your Kindle or something, that's completely fine. If you're learning your pronunciation from native speakers, that's fine as well. But yeah, there's definitely no problem in using the Oxford Dictionary or any other dictionary to check your pronunciation. It's also okay to listen to native speakers. The thing with native speakers is there's so many of them. they speak a little bit differently. If you're using the standard Oxford American dictionary or the standard Oxford British dictionary, it means you will have some sort of you're going to have the same pronunciation for all of the words. So maybe if you're using a dictionary, I would choose one. It doesn't matter if it's an American dictionary or a British dictionary, use that and get that pronunciation. But also, listening to native speakers can give you a more natural sense of how they are using the words and how their the words flow into the next word. When you use a dictionary, you're only going to hear the word in isolation, just the word. For example, other, other. You're not going to hear that word being joined together with other words or other dictionaries or other dictionaries. This word sounds a little bit different in context. So, although it's good to use a dictionary to get the pronunciation of a single word, I think it's always useful to be listening to full sentences using that word. You'll get the context and you'll get how it sounds in a real life situation. Um, Teacher, I don't know how do I tell you my name by pronounce it. It's really difficult. Puluvi, Puluvi, Puluvi. Is that better? Puluvi. I don't know. Hopefully that's correct. Puluvi, Puluvi. I don't know. Puluvi. You can let me know if that pronunciation is a little bit better. But yeah, I do apologize if I'm not pronouncing any of your names correctly. But I'll try. Puluvi, Puluvi. Okay. Um. So what I thought we would do is give some homework. So I have given you some examples of speaking questions from part one of the exam. So obviously it's going to be difficult for you to do the homework with speaking. So I thought if you would just to write some answers. So you could write some answers in the comment section of this video, either in on Facebook or on YouTube. For each answer, I think 2 to 3 sentences should be enough for each answer. So I have chosen 3 questions. Question 1: what is your place of work or what is your place of study like? So if you have a job, write about your place of work. If you are a student, you can write about your place of study. So that's our first question. You could write 2 to 3 sentences about that. Second question: what do you do in your free time? So again, 2 to 3 sentences about this question. And then number 3: what is your hometown famous for? So again, you could write 2 to 3 sentences in the comment section of the YouTube video. So that is our homework for today's class. I will give you some feedback on YouTube or on Facebook, tell you the things that you have done well, and maybe some of the small mistakes that you could improve on in your answers. I can also give you some feedback on whether your answer was too long or maybe too short as well. So, yeah, these are the 3 questions. What is your place of work or study like? What do you do in your free time? And what is your hometown famous for? So, as I said, everyone, you can write your answers in the comment section of this video, either on Facebook or on YouTube. So, we've got a few more questions, I think, before we wrap up today's lesson. I have a habit to say I mean, I feel like. Is it proper when replying and speaking Ielts? Yeah, you can. Lots of people use I mean or I feel when they're speaking. As long as that sounds natural, Min, while you are speaking. If it sounds natural, I don't think there's a huge problem with that. The problem could be if you keep repeating it many times. So if you're saying it almost every sentence or every second sentence, I think that would be a little bit too much. But just using I mean or I feel like, yeah, it can be fine. Don't overuse it. The examiner will be listening for this. If we go back again to lexical resource, if we are using the same things over and over again, it's maybe showing a bit of a lack of vocabulary. But it's okay to use it. Just be careful not to use it too much. But thank you very much for the question there, Min. Um, then your advice to me to listen to different and a variety of accents to help us to understand the examiner. Yeah, I think for English anyway, whichever whether you're studying IELTS or you're studying general English or you're studying anything to do with English, it's always a great idea to listen to a variety of accents. There is not one standard English throughout the world. People in Singapore speak differently from people in China, different from people in France, different from the UK, different from Australia, Canada. There's so many. So it's always good practice to listen to a variety of accents. South Africa, Anna Maria is saying Australia and New Zealand accents as well. Exactly. There are so many, and it can really help you understand English in a new sort of way as well. Some some countries use words in slightly different ways. Pronunciation is quite different in a lot of different countries as well. So, yeah, listening to as many accents as you can is a really useful way to practice for the IELTS test, but also to improve your general English. That's something that's really important. Improving your general English is going to improve your IELTS score as well. So don't only focus on IELTS, think about your overall development of your English skill. Okay, thank you very much, P. Okay, my pronunciation's wrong again. I will just call you P. Thank you very much for understanding. So there you go. There's a lot of differences with pronunciation in many countries. So I'm obviously finding it a little bit difficult to pronounce some Indian names here, and I'm sure there are certain English words that you find difficult to pronounce as well. If you can find some examples from a dictionary. You can find native speakers using those words, and that can kind of give you an idea of how you should pronounce those words. It's the first time to listen to a native speaker as you, and it's clear and understandable to me. Well, thank you very much, Layla. Sometimes the Scottish accent is not a very common one. So some people do have difficulty understanding at first. And that's like many accents. When you listen to them at first, they maybe sound unfamiliar, but then they become clearer after time. Obviously, I've not had this problem with you, Layla, as you seem to understand clearly. But like most accents in the world, the first time you hear one, you might think, "Whoa, what are they saying? But after a short while, you will get used to finding where the meter and their tone of voice goes. And yeah, if you can understand the grammar and the vocabulary, it won't be long until you can follow the accent as well. It won't take long. But I guess James' accent's a little softer. Is that right? Yes, it is, Anna Maria. Um, like most people, when they leave their home country, their accents do change a little bit. So it does become a lot softer over time. Also, I've been an English teacher for 20 years. You do learn to speak in a much more clear manner and try not to mumble when you speak as well. So yeah, I think it's a little softer. Most people who live in the UK, live in Scotland as well, would probably speak a little bit quicker than me and maybe not as clearly. And yeah, sometimes there's many British accents, Anna Maria. Some are stronger than others. Again, it's just a matter of time. Try to listen, and over time, you will be able to understand those accents and more clearly. But yes, certainly on first listening, a lot of British accents sound strong. Some all around the world. I've heard some people from the southern states of the US have strong accents, but again, you just listen and you'll pick it up quickly. P is saying here she found lots of difficulties while pronouncing English words. Yeah, it is something that a lot of students find difficulty with, P. And again, Layla gave some good tips here. Use a dictionary for individual words, and then try to find examples of native speakers that are using those words in real life situations. That can give you a fuller understanding of how you should be pronouncing those words. Thank you so much, Teacher James. You are very, very welcome, P. So I think that's a good point to finish today's live stream. Please remember, you can write your answers to the homework in the comment sections of this video. Those were the 3 questions here. And yeah, okay, actually, one more question. Anna Marie is saying, James, is it a problem that we have, for example? No, there's no problem with having a Latino accent at all, as long as your pronunciation is clear and you speak in a fluent manner. There is no problem with having a Latino accent. I've met people from South America before. I've met people from Colombia before. I actually played in a football team. One of the players was Colombian. He had a Latino accent, but he was very, very clear. I could understand him very, very easily. So the accent is not the problem here. It's more to do with pronunciation and the fluency of your speech. So don't worry about having a Latino accent. That is completely fine. Okay, so thank you, Layla, and thank you. You're welcome, Anna Marie. We're going to finish our stream here, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next stream on Thursday. Bye for now, everyone.